Hey everyone, welcome to Rockhound Talk Live, the only live Rockhound podcast on Facebook and YouTube. Sorry about our technical issues that we had with our streaming service, but we are now live and ready to roll. Hey Ben, how are you?
Hey Amber, I am doing pretty good. It's been pretty hot here, but I've got some vacation coming up next week to go to Montana, so I am very excited for that. I wanted to talk briefly. If anyone remembers our guest from episode 2 of season 2, Chase Anderson, the Agate dude. If you remember from our talk that we had with him, he actually had spent some time in Maui. And since we had our last episode, there were some really devastating wildfires that happened. And Chase has just decided to go all out, and he has now created the Agate Dude Charities, and he has been doing a lot of work to try to help the people of Maui. He has a wedding coming up in less than a month, and he has just been on fire doing so much stuff for Maui. So he does have, if you are in the Twin Cities area, he's got a benefit coming up. It is on September 10th at the Excelsior Brewing Company from 2 to 6 p.m. He's got vendors that'll be donating their sales and proceeds from the event. We've got a ton of donations that have come in. I've donated some different things too as well. So if you can make it out to, if you're in the Twin Cities area, it's the western suburbs of the Twin Cities in Minnesota. September 10th, Excelsior Brewing Company from 2 to 6 p.m. The Lahaina Wildfire Recovery Fundraiser. So if you can, please support it. And if you can't make it, also look around for some other charities. The Maui Food Bank is a great one. There's some other local Maui organizations too that it can go straight to helping those people, since I know it was a pretty devastating thing that happened. So if you can, please help.
Thank you for sharing that. That's a really nice fundraiser that he's doing. I wish it wasn't so far. I'd love to make it.
Yes.
So back into the rock hounding world, you have a trip coming up. So you're going to be going to Montana, and
Yes,
you'll be with one of season one guests.
Eddie White has
Yes.
offered to help our mineral club. For those of you that haven't looked for Montana agates, the best agates are usually in the middle of the river, which is because you can only get to them by boat. Eddie, he's just gotten so busy with rock hounding that he actually stopped his fishing part, and now he just takes people out rock hounding. And he's actually offered for 2 days. He's taking people from the Minnesota Mineral Club to different gravel bars in the Yellowstone River out near Glendive. So we're very excited for that. We do, if anyone's interested, for next year, the Minnesota Mineral Club does a trip to Montana every Labor Day weekend. So
Yes,
we,
that's definitely one I'm definitely going to next year for sure.
yes, yeah, it is a lot of fun. A lot of agates and petrified wood, and then we also spend a day at the Beish Dinosaur Ranch, which you can go find dinosaur bones. They take us to areas they don't let the general public to. This year, they actually have so many fossils that they actually were closed to the public this year because they just need time to get everything out.
Wow,
And they're still letting our group come because we've just been going there for so many years. So
that's nice.
yeah, and definitely look, if you are looking for other places to go to, look at your local mineral clubs as well, because those are great resources for some amazing field trips.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. Do you
So,
have any trips coming up?
no, I actually, well, next month I'm going to be back out in New York again. I'm like addicted. So I do plan to go out to New York, and I definitely, before it gets cold, I want to make it down to Haunted Ridge.
Mm.
Um, and so those are two places that I want to get to in the next couple of months. So otherwise, I'm still cleaning specimens and going through things that I want to keep, things I want to give away, things I want to sell. So I'm still in that process as well. I probably will be in it for a while.
I know how that goes. I still have my Michigan copper minerals that I still need to clean
Yeah.
up.
Yeah, I've been waiting to see whenever you have a chance to get them cleaned up to see what they look like. Well, since we got a delay with our technical difficulties with our streaming platform, definitely apologize for that. Let's go ahead and let's bring Dustin on.
Hello. Good
Hey,
good
Dustin.
evening.
Good evening. How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you guys?
Doing well. Thank you for
Great.
joining us. It's
Sure,
such a
sure.
pleasure to have you on tonight. Before we get started, I just wanted to say hi to some of the people who have said hi in the comments. I appreciate you guys hanging in there with our technical issues. Hi, Terry. Mike with number one Billard. I'm pretty sure that's Mike. Hey, Mike. And let's see, the Fairborn and Fossils, Lazans, is that how you say it?
Lazan.
Lazan, there you go. They're watching as well. Welcome. Thank you for commenting. So, Dustin, tell us a little bit about you in general. Like, I am not too familiar with you. We got you as a recommendation from Ben, and I started looking you up, and it's so exciting to see that there's an artist out there that's creating art based off of agates and your Native American culture. So tell us a bit about like where you are right now and kind of how you got there. And then I'd like to definitely dive into a little bit about, or as much as you'd like to share about Lakota and Sioux culture.
Sure. Yeah, well, my name's Dustin Twiss. I've spent most of my life living on the Pine Ridge Reservation in the southwest corner of South Dakota, kind of on the northern boundary of the reservation, and also next to the southern boundary of the Badlands National Park. So I live in a very remote area. I live here with my family. My dad is my next door neighbor. We have a small cattle operation as well. I have my wife, Angela. We have 4 kids. Uh, my oldest daughter, Jama, she's a information technologist. And Jacob and
Nice.
Daisy are in high school. And Joseph is getting toward the end of middle school. So they keep me really busy. Uh, just to give you a little idea how remote we are, I guess my kids, my high school kids commute 60 miles one way to school every day.
Wow.
So it's very
Wow.
remote. Um,
Yes,
Are
it
are
is.
you? I do have. So are you on a dirt road?
I'm at the end of a dirt road. I think maybe 4 or 5 years ago or something like that. The road or the main road that comes through our area, they chip sealed. But most of my life it was gravel up until then. When I leave my place, we can go, we go about a mile on our driveway, and then we can go east or west. And it used to be gravel, about 10 miles either way to get to the next main road.
Okay, yeah. I,
So
I was just curious. I've done some work in Wyoming and in North Dakota, and one point I was 45 minutes from pavement by car. So
right,
I
right,
I kind
yeah,
of have a taste of how remote some of that stuff can be. So
yeah. I grew up about having to travel about 20 minutes before you got to a hard paved road, and we're just out in the kind of a plateau out in the middle of the Badlands, and we're in the Oligocene epoch that, depending on which layer you're looking at, anywhere from like 28 million to 33 million years. And
okay,
Wow.
so I guess we'll start with some photos right now. So these are some photos that you had sent. So is that your father in the photo there on the bottom?
yes, it's me and my dad, Lewis. Our family's been out here for, well, with my kids, this will be the 5th generation that we've inhabited this area here. And that's him and I think we were out doing some fencing. And then if you look at the top right photo, you can see it's kind of a plateau, and the church looks a little bit lower, but actually that's on the lip of the table as well. and it drops off about 200 feet down into more badlands and different layers. And those lower layers are where you start getting into the agate layers a little more so.
Oh, okay.
And
Yeah.
the church that you see there is my project I've been working on for a couple years, to convert that old church into a gallery space for history and art gallery. There's a lot of significant history right here in my area, so there's really nothing to archive that or display it or tell it. So um, that's what I hope to do with my project.
Wow, that's great. And then I know you sent these are, I'm guessing, just some sunsets and different scenery.
Yeah, that's kind of looking off of the table there on the south side of it, looking west. All three of those pictures, uh, almost every single day, we have just a really beautiful sunset and sunrise. We we're early risers, having to get to school so early, so we see all phases of the morning. Sometimes it's completely dark, even after the kids get to school, it's still dark. But times like now, it's light when we leave, and it's still pretty bright. But here in the next month or so, look forward to seeing some really nice sunrises. That's kind of my inspiration. We just have these big, wide open, beautiful skies, and we're off the foot of the Black Hills where the, preci- the precipitation kind of rolls over that and does some neat tricks and plays with the light, and just gives me um, a lot of inspiration to work
I was
with.
just going to ask you if that the scenery is that give you inspiration for some of your art?
Yeah, it really does. Like I incorporate little badlands that I just see in my everyday life. Here traveling around the reservation, I'll see a neat little set of badlands somewhere, and maybe I'll snap a picture and I'll put that in whatever drawing I have coming up. And to me, I see a lot of similarities in the colors of agates.
Mm.
Even like with the Lake Superior agates and others that um, they're really close to the same palette as nature, and like the sky colors that we see out here, um, they they're pretty similar. So I try to use those natural colors as much as I can. I try not to get too radical in my colors, try to keep um, to to things that you'd see a little more every day out here in the prairie, on the prairie.
Yeah, yeah. So we did talk about your art. Let's go through. So you sent some photos. So I guess that's I'm guessing a Fairburn that did you find that Fairburn on the left?
I didn't. Do you guys have the picture of there's a red horse,
Yes.
the drawing
That's
rather?
yeah, I can
Oh,
totally see that
yes,
red horse.
Yeah.
yes.
So,
Yeah.
and if you notice the date on that, I drew that in 2018, and 3 years later, I was set up at the Hermosa agate swap in Hermosa, South Dakota, and acquaintance come up to me and he showed me the rock, and he said, "Hey, I found your horse." And
Wow, that's
I was like,
so
yeah,
cool.
and it was pretty wild, kind of made my hair on my neck stand up.
Yeah,
There's a
that
lot of
is so cool.
similarities between them, and he gifted me the agate. That was
Oh,
another
wow.
a Rockhound John. So yeah, just nice little things like that happen all the time, And there's a couple other instances like that where people had cut a rock or found a rock and found some, it looked kind of similar to some of my artwork. So that's always really fun, and it's inspiring too in itself. It kind of shows me that I'm where I'm at, where I'm supposed to be, and doing what I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
So
So, and it reminds me. So, I was going through some of your interviews that you've done, and I know that Inyan um, comes up a lot, and you've mentioned. I'm probably going to butcher this, so I'm really sorry. Um, Mitakayu Owasin. Did I?
yeah, so
How do
I'll
you
help
say
you out a
it?
little bit. So Ia is the way you pronounce that. The N is kind of nasolated. It's
Okay.
a entity in Lakota culture that most Lakotas would be familiar with, and I'll to that a little more, and then Mitakuye Oyasin, which means we're all related. And that's kind of the lesson that we get from Ia. So Ia is basically translates to rock, but in Lakota culture, he was an entity, kind of like a supernatural entity. And he was the first creation of Tekanshala, or the Great Spirit, or God, and he was like not in a solid form or state. He was more like um, blobbish, or like an energy form, something like that.
Okay.
Is the way the story goes, and so they say that they had the same, and during the creation period, the same emotions were still with us, or were there at that time, like so loneliness and sadness and happiness and whatnot. And so Ia, he was lonesome and he wanted companionship, and so he had to devise a way to come up with his own companionship because he was the only being around. And so he set off into a spin, and he spun and began to shed his parts off, and like the rocks became the materials for the stars and the planet, and that was his skin. And the other parts of him, or his blood, became the water, which also became the sky and whatnot. So basically, the story is the moral of it is how Ian gave all of himself to create all of what we have and what we see, and that relates us all, not just um, native to native or person to person, but even with the ground and the grass and the trees and the stars. We're all part of the same formation. So that's one of the many lessons that we can use for in teaching culture.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, it is. It's beautiful, actually.
So these are some other drawings that you had sent. Are there any I guess meanings behind some of these? I know, like in a lot of native cultures, the white buffalo is pretty sacred.
Right. Yeah. For the Lakota, it is as well. It has a lot of different significances. Uh, one thing, I think one of the main messages is just unity, and like um, for good for all people. Just that kind of a lucky symbol, I guess you could say, or a good sacred symbol that just um, to unite everybody and bring goodness for everybody. And then we have a lot of different stories in Lakota culture, like a white buffalo calf woman, and like when a white buffalo is born, it goes through a whole color sequence. It has white, yellow, red, and black, which is our Lakota colors. And if you look at the picture on the right, and then down there in the Badlands, you see those colors: white, yellow, red, and black. And if you're familiar with our medicine wheel at all, that's a Lakota symbol, which it has a lot of significant meaning as well. But basically, for at least in my part, my Teoshbai, like my little part of the tribe, it symbolizes the four directions and phases of life. And so there's a lot of significance that's connected to colors, I think, too, in Lakota culture.
So when you're designing these, I guess, like what is your process then? Do you sort of start with, like, there's an animal, or I've even seen you do dinosaurs. Like, do you kind of start with what you want the subject to be, and then, like, you decide, like, then later, like, like, how do you decide, like, because everything just looks like it just is there, but, like, I could never think to, like, have the designs and the colors and have all that, like, work together.
Yeah, well, uh, generally, or at least to this point, I've done animals or landscapes or anything that's indigenous to the Great Plains, which is pretty broad. It gives me a lot of subject material, and I have, I I don't know. I just kind of dream up little images and uh, designs in my mind, and I kind of build them over time. Like I have I have dozens that I want to do that I just haven't got to yet, you know. And then the color process is um, pretty tough whenever I come to that. Well, before I come to the color, uh, one thing with my art that's a little different. I always do the foreground first. I have to. I work primarily in color pencil, and so I kind of, I'll do a little sketch, map it out, and then I'll start transferring that to my larger paper, whatever medium I'm working on. And then I do the foreground first, and then usually I'll add the badlands and then the ground, and then I'll put like some kind of sky. But generally, I kind of know everything that I'm gonna do before I start putting it on, before I start mapping it out, and then I start fortifying it. I call my form of art fortification art. I
Mm-hmm.
build it just kind of like nature did too, from the outside in. I don't put the exact lines I'm going to use in always necessarily, um, but basically I'll either use like a compass or just hand draw 'em or a little circle stencil to um, kind of map it from the outside toward the center, because
Oh, okay.
I need to do that, especially as I'm getting more technical and detailed to like get my eyes in where they need to go, working to highlight different area, like give different textures and different highlights more so as I go. So yeah, so I
So yeah, yeah, no, that's, I mean, it's great. Like yeah, it's just amazing that you can sort of have all that sort of planned out in your head and then just to be able to put it on paper like that, that's great. Um, so I have seen,
I was gonna ask. I was gonna say next. I wanted to ask about the background of that. That
yeah,
was my next
so I've
question.
noticed recently, like those were some, I think some of your older drawings that you've done. I've noticed some of these from your Facebook page. Could you talk kind of your inspiration, or I guess like how you decided to start using these old I don't know, if are they banknotes? Like what are those?
yeah, so if anybody familiar with traditional Native American art has heard of ledger art, and uh, I guess today it's expanded a little farther beyond the ledger. But if you think back to like the mid to late 1800s, whenever there was contact made between the tribe and settlers coming this way, the groups of people that were out here were the tribes, the settlers, the military, and like the traders, the merchants, and they were bringing pencils and ink and paints and whatnot. But traditionally, the tribes were using hides almost exclusively, other than like rocks and whatnot. But during that period, not just the buffalo, but a lot of the wildlife was hunted almost to extinction. And so hides were really extremely limited, and if you had one, you probably didn't really want to use it for art at that point.
Hmm.
And so there was one guy in particular named Bad Heart Bull, and in his community, he wanted to. He was um, a a winter count artist. That's traditionally, or this is where it stemmed from. Every year they do a winter count, and there'd be a mark for every person or every family, and kind of some history about how the year went, what the supplies were like, and what the movements were like. And so that kind of ended with reservation life. But Bad Heart Bull, he got a hold of some color pencils and some ink and whatnot, and he went to an agent or a trader and said, I have some color, but I have nothing to put it on. And they looked around and said, well, about the only thing we have is these ledger books with paper. You can take some of these. Um, it just became a thing, and the Lakotas and a few other tribes have carried it on over the years, and now it's a big niche. There's a lot of artists that do ledgers just exclusively. There's collectors out there who collect exclusively ledger paper. Most of the
And
go ahead.
and so that is like actual like was that like 1800s like ledger paper then that you're drawing on?
Yeah, the originals here were 1894, and they're pretty interesting because they're from Fort Pierre, South Dakota, which was, kind
Okay.
of the primary hub at that time. And these in particular were um, tax receipts for their lots in
Mm.
town, for their lot property. They were paying tax, and these were the receipts for them. And this is kind of two-phase here. I'm currently doing a project along with a few other Lakota artists. A store in Rapid City has a book of these that they got at an auction, and the four of us are kind of filling them up as time goes. And so, we retain a right to use our work. So I got prints of some of those made, and so I reproduced the like the deer and the hawk, but then I added original backgrounds, unique backgrounds to them.
Hmm.
Um, a lot of my work, all of my work seems to be really time consuming. I just put a tremendous amount of time goes into, mapping it out and designing it, it's line after line, and then uh, going back and forth, smoothing everything out. So this was a way for me to kind of make some little more affordable art for like my friends and the Rockhound community and others, because like my full scale pieces get really expensive. I get so much time into them, and um, the rock community has always been so great to me. I just want to find ways to give back. So
Yeah,
um,
so we actually did have a question. Stacy, she was trying to she's looking to see, I guess, how if someone wanted one of these pieces, do you have them on your website, your Facebook page? Like how can people look into getting one of these?
yeah, I wish I had better news, but they're kind of tough to get a hold of. My website, I don't I started out with kind of a low end platform to build my website on, and it has its ups and downs all the time. And I think for maybe like 2 years, I haven't done much with it. I'm primarily marketing on my Facebook, just as myself. I do a little bit on Etsy. My wife's a bead artist as well, so she sells a lot across Etsy. But uh, like the 2 weeks ago, I had a residency at our local college center at the historical center there, and these were these were selling just as fast as I could make them. Like within an hour or two, they'd be gone. So most of my work I do is commission work, which I like fine, but I prefer just to do stuff out of my own head. I can do it faster, and it appeals to me a little more.
Right,
Um,
right.
I
We
was
did
going to
have.
ask you. Oh, sorry.
I was
We
gonna
keep
say
doing
just
that.
just real quick. Chase says that you're awesome.
right on. Chase is awesome too. I got to listen to his show, and I share a lot of the same sentiments, about how the rock community is really a great place to be for people who can't always find their place with other people. I was kind of like that myself. I felt I feel more comfortable around rocks than people for the most part.
Right.
And also, like Chase talked about, suicide awareness. I think that's really important. It affects all of us way too often. So
Yes.
um, Chase does a great job out there, and I hope he keeps going. Hopefully, within the next week or so, I'll have some new prints available. My latest piece, the Badger piece, and so um, I would want to donate a large uh, artist proof of my new Badger to Chase's Maui cause.
Oh,
And
that's very nice.
That would be great. Yeah.
That would be great. I was going to ask you, Have there been any artists that have been, I know that you said, nature is your inspiration, but are there any artists that inspire your work at all?
There's quite a few. I would say one in particularly would be Oscar Howe, the late Oscar Howe. Um, he was really ahead of his time. He was a Lakota artist as well, or a Dakota maybe. Um, and one of the problems he was having were, he was the museums and collectors and whatnot. They were saying, um, this is not Native American art, you know. And so his journey was kind of saying Native American art is what Native Americans say it is, you know. It's not for anybody
Yeah.
else to decide.
Yeah.
And so he really kind of paved the way a lot, I think, for people to get away from stick figures and rock, what do they call
Mhm.
those?
Well, the cave
Um,
paintings.
yeah,
Yeah.
or so um, I
Yeah,
think he
so
was
yeah,
he was
so
kind of one of the catalysts to kind of really spur things into motion. And I think in Indian country we are really even since um, we left the buffalo hides and started the ledger. Um, they were first some of the first to use canvas to draw on, which that moved to Europe after that, and then like using papers, they were using commodity ration papers to draw on, like get a bag of flour and use the flour, and now you have some drawing material. So
Mhm.
I think the Native community has always been really innovative, and to this day is very innovative in art.
That's
right, yeah.
awesome.
So I did see in one interview you mentioned that your grandmother created some art. What sort of art, I guess, or I guess what was sort of done like in your family, I guess, that kind of helped you along, or that you saw that kind of like sort of supported you in your artistic career?
Yeah, I think, well, just growing up on the reservation in general, everybody's seems to be pretty artsy. There's been some recent studies where there's like I think over 50% of the households on our reservation have at least one artisan within the household. My grandma, she was into beadwork and quill work. She'd do like earrings and medallions, and for like beauty pageants, or say the powwow princess or whatnot, she would do like she would bead the crowns and things like that. Um, she wasn't really into drawing. She tried to teach me how to bead, but I just couldn't pick it up, So maybe that's why I went to the pencil. I always like to just sketch. I didn't seem to be so good with the traditional crafts as grandma was.
And did
And
she collect rocks?
yeah, she was the one that kind of first got me into rock hounding. She uh, I spent most of my time with her when I was little, and living out here in the middle of nowhere. We have rocks and badlands everywhere, and she wanted a petrified wood garden around her house, so we'd go out here and there. She had a pretty good one by then already, by the time I was getting out and about, but I'd haul her wood home for her, and she knew about some of the other rocks. We have a nice diverse set of rocks out here, and so I was just finding different stuff and taking more interest in it. And one day I'd come across the agate, and I asked grandma what it was, and she told me it was an agate. She knew that much about it, and that her brother had looked for those and whatnot. And she had a couple at the house actually. And so I started asking around, but at that time, hardly anybody knew about the Fairburn agates, as a pretty small base. And I did, run onto a couple people, and eventually they sent me to this guy named Tom, who was kind of the foremost collector, and he had tons of knowledge. He was like a road engineer who'd done a lot of work in the Black Hills area in the in the dirt. And um, I think he wanted me to bring them to him to buy, and he wasn't hunting so much, so he's like, go here, go there, you know. And
Right.
there weren't very many people hunting at that time, just a handful, and now there's like literally thousands of hunters, you know. It's really changed a lot. But um so um as I started finding more and more, I was just more intrigued, and you know, Tom and introduced me to some other guys, and I was just getting more information and more information, and learning the geology. It was just all so intriguing to me. And I had trained for IT. I was in the Army, and when I got out, I used my GI Bill and did a lot of IT school, and then went to work in the IT field. And then as my kids were coming along, I didn't get to spend much time with them. You know, I could provide really well for them, but I felt kind of absent, and I was lonesome or I wanted to be a part of that as well. And so I was trying to think, you know, how could I get back to art? And, um, I knew I'd have to be like really unique and original and different to, you know, really get off the ground in the art. And so for literally for like years, I was walking around looking for agates, thinking, what can I do with art and that would be unique and different, you know? And I take my finds around here and there, and sometimes somebody would say, "Oh, that looks like a horse," or "That looks like a man," or something, you know. And one day I just kind of had the idea to maybe try to, you know, put that to paper, and I kept telling my wife about it. I got this idea, I got this idea, and maybe after a couple of years, she was tired of hearing it. She said, "I don't even know what you're talking about," and she she slid me a pencil and a paper, and so I, you know, whipped up a couple drawings, and um, just for the heck of it, I posted it on one of our local rock groups, I think, and there was just quite a bit of interest in it. You know, people thought it was cool, and somebody's like, would you sell that?" And I was like, "Yeah, I suppose." And he's like, "Well, what do you want?" And I was like, "How about $100?" And he's like, "I'll take it," you know. And I was like, "Oh, cool," you know. And so I got another one going, and somebody asked about it, and they said, what do you got to have for that?" And I was like, uh, $200. And they're like, "I'll take it," you know. And so it just kind of went from there. And really, like I said, it was the rock community who was um, kind of spurred me into keep keep going, and to
and and so
keep
when did you start selling your artwork? What year was that?
about 2016.
2016. Okay.
Yeah.
So just to give a little bit more background on some of, I guess, of Dustin's accomplishments. So I guess 2016 you started selling your artwork, and then in 2018 you won the New Artist Award at the Red Cloud Indian Art Show. And then the following year, 2019, you won an award for drawing. And then I'm guessing a break because of COVID. And then last year, 2022, you won best in category at Native Pop. So
Yeah.
so I guess, did you like just know that you were good when like people started buying it, or like how did you like find that you have this like talent?
Uh, well, like I said, I always kind of like to sketch and draw, but I didn't really have any formal training. But like I said, our community is rich in artists, you know. We have like world-class artists just walking down the street every day. So I started pestering them, you know, like I'd go to the grocery store and I'd be like, "Hey, do you think you could check out my drawings?" And they'd be like, "Yeah, sometime come over." I was like, "Well, I got them in the car, you know." And so uh, I'd drag them over to the car, and they'd be like, "Oh yeah, it's cool, you know, it looks nice." And I was like, "I know there's something I could be doing different or doing a little better, you know." I was like, "You could be honest with me," and they would, you know, they'd say, "Straighten this up or do this, fill this out," and whatnot. And uh, I do that to this day, uh, you know. So and
Yeah, no,
I've
that's great. And I guess if people are looking, I know some of the museums in the area, the Journey Museum, Crazy Horse Memorial, you were featured there. And then I saw, I'm assuming it's up right now, but the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service took, it was ferrets, I guess, and that is in their museum in West Virginia. Is that true?
Yeah, that's right.
That's
I,
awesome.
it's just been going better than I could have ever expected. A lot of times it just kind of feels like a ride that I'm on. I don't really know where I'm going next. I'm just gonna enjoy whatever happens, the best I can, and make the most out of my opportunities. And at least to this point, it's been I've been um, improving, I think, my skill and my income from art each year. I'm getting more opportunities, and uh, one thing I learned is that I wanted to have my own space. So that's the project that I'm working on now. I'm working with some uh, really good industrial leading organizations like Art Space and Springboard from the Art and First People's Fund, and just to name a few.
So trying to build like a gallery, maybe, is that what your like kind of end goal is?
Yeah, for sure. What I've been learning is, it's just all about networking.
Yeah.
You just gotta, the more people you bring into your circle that are good people and have good skills, it just grows. You grow them, they grow you.
Yeah, absolutely agree.
And we have a tremendous amount of history that happened right here directly where I live, that's connected with the Wounded Knee Massacre and the Ghost Dance era. And then there's some stuff with the bombing range, the eminent domain, where this area where my family lives back during World War II. And there's a lot of remnants of that here as well. So, and some good stories from that. Um, so I want to just start collecting some of that information, both on any way I can. I'd like to have a video center where I could bring in some tribal leaders or some people with good knowledge or that have experience, like firsthand experience from the bombing range area and some of the other historical events, and get those recorded. And uh, people wander through here all summer long, and they're just looking for some place to see and something to do, but we really don't have anything. We really don't have any development here, so, and we have this, people have little clues about um, what they want to know, but they're thirsty for more, and I hope to kind of quench that thirst for them, give them some good factual historical knowledge that they can decipher for themselves.
So if
That's
people
the
want to
goal.
follow like and get updates, is that like your Facebook, Instagram? Like where can people like follow for that?
Yeah, I think like if you just wanted to see my work, like, and you wanted to maybe order a print or something like that, just for viewing, if you see my Instagram at Dustin Twiss is the best place to look at that. I accept pretty much everybody on my personal Facebook account, which is Dustin Twiss. I also have the twistgallery.com account. I try to keep that one equal to my personal one. I think it'd be a good idea for me to start a page for my church project.
Mm.
Even though I'm still kind of early, I'm still kind of planning, on getting my financials lined up with the help of some of these big organizations. So I'd really like to share my journey and like to have people come out someday when they get a chance, and then send somebody else out on down the road. So um, and then my email is dustin@twistgallery.com. That's the best way to get a hold of me. If you want to order anything, I sell a lot of note cards. Usually I do 4 note cards for $20, and then like a few dollars for shipping. And I generally have most of my images on hand. So yeah,
Is there?
very-
Yeah, I remember you mentioned it, in maybe the pre-interview or in some other context, the connection between agates and the Lakota.
yeah. So I could touch on that a little bit. For me personally, anyway, when I probably a lot of you rockhounds out there, you have your pocket rock, your nice little rock you take around everywhere. So having my pocket rock, it just always gives me an opportunity to teach, especially like the youth. If I could find some youngster that's interested in nature or Lakota culture, whatever the case may be, I'll try to use my agate as a teaching point. And, and, and there's a lot of different connections that I see between the Fairburn agate and the Lakota. Um, they're both made of stardust. They're both incubated in water. The womb is water, and um, they're all unique. Yet they're all perfectly imperfect. You know. And then the Lakota society, it's highly built on circles. Circles is like a symbol of unity on the plains long ago, which was really, really important because the tribes would traditionally spread their people all over the place, spread them pretty thin. So you had to maintain that unity to have any strength. Otherwise you'd break out into all kinds of groups. So unity is real important. So the circle is real important. So the
I feel like
Lakota,
that's really relevant today too.
yeah, for sure, for sure. And over time we see the Earth moves as a circle and moves in a circle like the moon and the universe. And the Lakota would gather to meet and make their decisions in a circle. And afterward, they would circle up and have some food. They would pray in a circle. I'd use the circle for hunting, for warring, for their movement. Just everything was built upon a circle, and that was where their strength came in. Was those layers and layers, just like the agate, I'd say. Um, the over over time and the elements, they all build that strength and character into something that we can appreciate. And that's where, so that's kind of the way I use the agate too. Um, and then also that for me, he's like the remnants of Ia. He's this little special piece of Ia that's still there to remind us of our relationship with each other and to the universe and to grandmother Earth. And we get to, we can all have a little piece of in our pocket or on our finger or around our neck. So I think it's pretty special.
Yeah,
A
that's
special
actually
rock.
beautiful. The way you put that, actually, I love it. Very nice.
So you talked some about like the culture. I guess so. I spent some time in college. I worked and lived in Montana, and for about a year, I worked at a group home for juveniles, and we had quite a few kids that would come in from like the reservation, and being a white guy from the suburbs of Minneapolis, I didn't really have any exposure to it. And they would always kind of say things like, you don't know what it is on, what it's like on the res. And like it kind of like opened up my eyes to a lot of, sort of the differences between, I guess you could even call them worlds, like just the whole world that I was living in. And so I was wondering if you could talk about like some of sort of the differences and what people might not know if they've never talked to someone who's native and don't know they've never set foot on a reservation. Like, could you talk about that?
Yeah, for sure. My mom, she's a non-native, and so I had a lot of experience off the reservation as well. I'd spend some times in the summer, and then also in high school, I went a couple of years off the reservation, and you know, um, um, there is a lot of differences, but there's way more similarities. You know, um, The Lakota, like I said, I think they recognize the relationships that are, it's just like interwoven within the culture to recognize those relationships. I think that's why a lot of us end up like water protectors and um, air pollution fighters and whatnot. Um, like off the reservation, like you have your cousins and your first cousins and your second cousins and your third cousins and your aunts and uncles and your grandparents and whatnot. But the family structure is a lot different, at least here on our reservation. Uh, like uh, like your grandpa, say your um, your dad's dad, any of his brothers would be considered your grandpas as well. And then uh, your dad's brothers, they're kind of like your dad too, they're your uncle too, but so then their kids would be like your siblings. So rather than first cousins, they're more like your siblings. And so that's why we say traditionally a long time ago, Lakota never had any orphans, because you always had multiple grandparents and parents and siblings and whatnot. And um, you always had to provide for yourself, which is kind of the way it still is, like um, you wouldn't take somebody buffalo meat every day, but you could give them a horse and a bow, and then they could get their own buffalo. And it's still kind of like that, we all watch out for each other. Whoever's down and out, we try to rally them up the best we can. We have a tremendous amount of struggles, and there's a lot of misconceptions. Part of my church project, that's kind of my goal with that, is to put some real actual history out there just to let people experience that and make their own decision on it.
Yeah.
Um, like growing up for myself during that period, we didn't hardly get any of that type of information, not even here on the reservation. We had very little like language uh, classes or history classes that had to do with that. It was all kind of like colonialized history. And it wasn't until kind of after I got out of school there was bigger pushes to like rejuvenate that. But it was really tough because there was such a gap there. For so long it was kind of forbidden or taboo or whatever to practice or learn any of that. So um, we're really trying to piece things together, and I'm really hopeful and wishful that we can um, find our strength again once we kind of get our culture back in order, the way it was meant to be.
Yeah, and
Um,
it seems like your art, really demonstrates that too, where you pull a lot into, um, your surroundings for one, and then also, just your well, your culture. Yeah,
yeah, I think, if you want to visit the reservation, a lot of people are weary of it, but you come here, people are really generous. They want to teach, they want you to understand, they want to bridge gaps.
right.
Um, I would say, during the daytime, it's it's totally safe to come down here and interface. At night, it could probably be just like any city, like um, worse things seem to happen at night, but
Yeah, no, I definitely get that. I've been through a few, and I live actually in the county. I live at the Mille Lacs reservation is just north of me too, which I could get into some of that discussion here too. I know there's some people that are um, being ridiculous about trying to say that tribal police don't have rights to pull people over and different things, which is a whole other issue. But I know the one thing that, just kind of talking about sort of some of the hardships and different things. And I'd mentioned this to Amber before we started, but I was reading through one of the things that popped up, and you were talking about how like some of the reservation contractors were trying to like fund construction projects, and they were having issues because some of the banks won't support them because of a lack of collateral, where the land, they can't use it because it's considered trust land. Is that right?
Yeah, we just have a tremendous amount of difficulties that we still have to work through. Just for instance, I'm working on a project. I can't say too much, but it's an extremely large video game company, and they want to come here and they want to get some textures from the earth. And I've been working with them for over a year. The tribe's all down. They're ready to go. They're excited about it, but the large company can't submit to the jurisdiction to go to tribal court if there's any incidents that happen or any liability that comes up. And they say, well, it's because the tribe has interest in the project, that it couldn't necessarily trust their court to make a fair decision. So I say, so my response is, if you go to the BLM and you want to texture their land and something happens, they'll take you to federal court. It's still the United States government's court that you're going to for working on their land. It's no
Right.
different.
Right.
So we just have a tremendous amount of this language, this legal language that we still have to get straightened out. There's a lot of work to do. South Dakota doesn't have the best record with working with the tribes. I wish they'd be a little bit more like Montana, who's taking a proactive stance. And they've come to understand that the tribal nations are their state citizens as well. And when the tribes do well, the state does well. That's tax money for them. That's revenue for them. That's outside money coming in. So I think that's really where our state needs to strengthen the relationship, our nation to state relationship could benefit both sides. And I
Yeah,
think
it
that's the
just that
direction we need to work.
yeah, that just reminds me a lot too of your artwork here with, taking old sort of official, possibly government documents and being able to transpose like these beautiful like works of art. Like, yeah, that's really great.
Just a note here too, good old reservation life, our power's out at the moment. So
Oh, okay.
uh,
I did see you get a little bit darker. I wasn't sure if the sun went down or what
yeah,
happened.
so I'm totally on battery power at the moment. So if the power doesn't come back on,
Is
I
that
could
normal? Is
maybe.
it weather related or?
I'm not sure what's going on. Our weather seems to be pretty good, but I mean, we do we do lose power from time to time. And part of it's just being we're so remote out here.
Mhm.
There's only one line that comes, miles and miles, and everybody's branched off of that. And maybe 40 miles away, a badger crawled the pole or put the next 60 miles out or something.
Yeah.
So
So are there a lot of other people then that collect rocks where you're at?
quite a few, a lot of the tribal members here, they're getting more and more into it. It's a good source of little extra money, some gas money. It's good exercise. It's being, it's coming more and more to light, the historical value of the agate to the Lakota. They've found some winter counts from like 400 or 500 years ago that has some of these same type of patterns on the borders of them. And like another friend of mine, John goes in center. He has a really nice presentation. A lot of all of my information, just like you and Chase said, Ben, we're just passing it on. Somebody else gives us information, we're just passing it on. So John is where I get a lot of my um, information on how the rocks tie to the Lakota culture. And he's out and doing presentations and whatnot. So uh, I see a lot of artists and Lakota artists in particular who are starting to incorporate either that pattern or the actual agates or something to do with that more into their art as well, which makes me proud, that I kind of bring a element back into what we're producing out here that was kind of lost for a while. I feel like.
Yeah. So I guess we can go back through quick and just look at some comments.
Yeah.
Star did ask if you've done anything. I know you've there's not many waterfalls in the Badlands, but do you have any waterfalls?
I don't have any any waterfalls. Starting on a piece that has lakes in it. It's like um, what was the period? The Thunder Horse, the Brontotherium, like the late Oligocene or something. This was like a tropical rainforest kind of area. So yeah, I'm gonna start doing more water stuff. I'm gaining a lot of fans in like the Great Lakes area, so
Mm.
I kind of feel like it's important to um, get water incorporated into my drawings. Water is a big part of the Lakota culture as well. So
Yeah,
that's
and
something I look to do more of.
Stacy did say that she's bought a couple of your pieces through Wayne and Chase. So she was one that had asked earlier about the deer. And we had Lane Joanna mentioned that they did find a Fairburn that looked like a horse head.
Nice. Yeah.
And it looks like we have one other comment here. Um, they mentioned about a drum. I'm not sure if you know what that's about.
Yeah, I did a couple of drums. I did one for a traveling project that represents Tatanka, one of Eon's descendants in the creation story, in the Lakota creation story, and that was with a group of fabulous artists, and that piece is gonna go on tour to a few different museums, a few different venues.
Wow.
And then also I did a drum for one of my friends. I think he was gifting it to his brother or his cousin. It was like for to go to powwows and sing with.
So if people wanted to view your artwork, are there places they can view it right now?
The best place, the easiest place would go to my page on Instagram at Dustin Twiss, and you can just flip through what I've posted over the last couple months. Most of the stuff on there, I have like note cards and 8x10 and 14 by 17-inch prints. That's kind of my basic stuff that I have. Um, like I said, my note cards, I do four for 20, 8x10s for $60, and the 11x14s for like 120. And I usually do like a couple dollars for shipping. And if you just reach out to me on my email, I'll respond.
And I
For
will include that in this episode so that people have that reference as well.
sure. Any other questions that anybody's
Yeah. Any other
curious
questions before
about?
we wrap up?
Thanks everybody for stopping by.
Yes, it's
Appreciate
been
it.
such a pleasure. I enjoyed learning from you today. Thank you.
I
Yes,
hope to
yeah, and
get
those the artwork too. I've seen it, on Chase's shows in different places, but yeah, I do follow you on Facebook, and it's always interesting, scrolling through it and seeing a new image pop up. It's
Yeah.
great.
right
Yes,
on. And, Amber, do you happen to have the badger on queue? Oh yeah, okay.
oh, yeah.
So I don't know this. It's not too big, but in the ground there, I have some ravines built in there, and that was kind of the technique I was going to use with my water. If you look into the crevices of the ravine, it matches the colors of the Badlands to show
Yeah.
that the Badlands are kind of uneroded. They're not eroded out yet. And then in the sky where the curves kind of meet each other, I've
Uh-huh.
worked on the shadowing. A lot of times when you find a nice patinaed Fairburn, it has a little bit of a faceted look. It's not faceted, but it's the
Mm.
way it's chipped out, and the curves and the lines seem to hold a little more strength, and so it chips a little deeper between the lines. So I've been trying to get more three-dimensional. That's Oscar Howe. He was really known for like his depth and dimensions that he showed in his artwork, and so that's something I'm working toward gaining in mine. Hopefully down the road, the sky will look like it kind of wraps up toward you or away from you or something like that. Or I try to put badlands in about everything because that's what I see every day, and I want to, make them bend around in a circle, like toward you or away from you. I want to add more texture in the ground, like I say, adding water features and things like that. And I'd like to get more elaborate, like just do some super elaborate pieces, like say have a bunch of trees and maybe stars or different animals or different land formations, but they would just take up so much time by hand. I, um, I, I can't really afford to do anything too crazy, everything I do, I
So
have to be able to finish like within a month or two,
yeah, so like this badger piece, how like about how long did that take you?
About, I would say, around 120 hours from start to finish.
Wow.
Um, a good a good portion of it, about a third of it, is getting it all designed. Um, the animal takes quite a while because I have to build in like the facial features and any kind of parts it has. I have to consider all that as I go. I can only do a few lines at a time, and I have to build them in. It's kind of like a puzzle, You got to sit there, and it's like a puzzle with no box to look at. Yeah, yeah.
Right.
And you just kind of have to work it out in your mind and as you go. And then I get to the color part, and that can be pretty painstaking too. Like sometimes I might not have my ground colors picked out, and I have the whole rest of the picture drawn, and then I'm just a nervous wreck thinking I'm gonna wreck the rest of it with some crazy colors in the ground, And so I get a lot of compliments on the colors that I use and um, the way I use them, which is kind of interesting since I'm self-taught, or nature taught, I guess.
Yeah, that's incredible.
And so yeah, I just try to do something that I like, and I hope other people like it too.
Yeah.
That's the main thing. So yeah, and I'm just always trying to evolve. I know other people are. I can see sometimes in other people's agate art how they're picking up on the new things that I'm doing. They're kind of figuring out off of what I figured out, how the patterns go and whatnot. And that's good, that's cool, but I'm just trying to keep evolving, uh, um, kind of what I see in my head. I can't get it to paper yet. I have a long ways to go, but hopefully on down the road I'll get a little more of what I have in my mind to paper, and hopefully inspire people to just keep coming up with new cool stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and definitely, I like I've mentioned before, follow Dustin on Facebook, Instagram. He's got some great stuff, and I know you have posted sometimes when you've got things for sale on there too. I know there's been quite a few people that have been itching to buy some more of your artwork, so hopefully you'll post some more soon.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to keep getting more out there. Or if you have a piece in mind, reach out and we can talk about it.
Yeah, I
Nice.
wish I had more photos because I just to go through some of the ones that I've seen. Besides the landscapes, I know I've seen like you've had like dragonflies. I really like the one that you had too with like lightning that was coming down. That was really cool. And then I mentioned even the dinosaurs. You had, I think it was like a velociraptor and like a
You
woolly mammoth too.
Yeah,
Like
mammoth. Yeah.
yeah, those
Yeah.
are really cool just to kind of bring, sort of the prehistoric, what used to be there thousands or millions of years ago. Those are really great. I love those.
Yeah, like I said, anything indigenous to the area, and we got a large range of animals yet to cover. So
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Dustin, for joining us tonight. Let's see. We've got another comment here.
Yes,
Oh, the
they
Crawford Rock
said
Swap.
yeah, it's coming up pretty soon. It's one of our best shows out in this area. I definitely recommend hitting the Crawford show if you get a chance. I plan on being there. I'm not sure if I'm going to be set up yet. Things have been really busy for me, you know. I've been trying to just balance everything out. I used to come out with a new set of cards every year, but I kind of slowed that down to a set every other year. So 2024, I'm kind of ramping up, maybe the end of this year, beginning of next year for a new set of cards, which usually everybody's happy when new cards come out. And then
So
yeah,
if people were wondering, the Crawford Rock Swap is in Nebraska. It's put on by the Northwest Nebraska Rock Club. It's Labor Day weekend, so as it mentions, September 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. And they do have, just looking at their schedule, it's at the Crawford City Park, so Crawford, Nebraska. They actually do have a field trip to Agate gravel beds. So people are looking for some rock swaps and rock collecting. The Crawford Rock Swap is coming up quick.
yeah, it's a great show. That's a great field trip as well. You know, we have just so many great rocks out here, not just the Fairburn. We have all kind of petrified wood. We have calcid, cycad. We have all kind of different chalcedonies, prairie agates, bubblegum agates, lace agates. We have sea type stuff, corals. We have so much out here in South Dakota. We're just so blessed in the rock department, you know. So and then northern Nebraska. So I'd recommend come on out. You know, we got a couple guys around the Black Hills that are doing tours. So look them up. They'll get you out and to a spot where you can find something. And
Nice.
yeah, take a lot of the work out of it. They're really hard to find. You know, like I used to be able to go out in a day and find a small handful or at least find one or two. But now, it could be 2 or 3 days to find anything at all.
Wow.
You
Yeah,
could still get.
I know. Looking for Fairburns, I did it once and I found a really really tiny one. And from what I've heard, it's a good day when you find a Fairburn.
It is, and you could still go out, find 2 or 3 in a day, a couple good ones, but you just have to be persistent and have to really want one.
Yeah.
You'll get one. So yeah, I really appreciate you guys having me on.
Thank you for
I
coming on the show today. It was great.
Yes. Yeah, and thanks for sticking with us through all these technical difficulties. This was the most difficult one so far.
Yes.
But yes. So do you want to introduce our next guest?
Next episode, Wednesday, September 6th at 9 p.m. We have Bethany Burke, aka BK Burns. She is a paleontologist and she also preps fossils. She mostly does her presentations for children, but she tailors it for all ages. She is from Texas and she's got a lot of energy, very intelligent, and passionate about fossils. So really excited to have her on as a guest. And we will sign out for tonight. So thank you everyone for joining. Thank you, Dustin, and we'll see you in 2 weeks. Peace out.
Bye everyone. Have a good night.